Hey, how's it going? How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Sid. How about yourself?
I am doing well. Welcome to our Easyship Indiegogo webinar. Thank you for joining us, Matt from Easyship. I'm really excited to be hosting you today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us live as well. I'm going to jump right to it because I'm super excited for this one. We are turning it over to you to take the lead. I would love it if you could introduce yourself and kick things off. And just for the audience again, this is Matt from Easyship, the head of crowdfunding.
Awesome, guys. Yeah, appreciate you having me on. And again, like I'll share my screen in a second, but my name is Matt. I'm the head of crowdfunding over here at Easyship, and I've been working in the crowdfunding world for a little over 4 years now. So really been working with all types of campaigns, launching their product on Indiegogo to really help them navigate the shipping and fulfillment space, and really just give them ideas and thoughts on like what it takes to actually get your product around the world. So today I'm going to be going kind of high level on some things to think about when shipping your product and fulfilling your product around the world. So am I good to share my screen?
You are good to share the screen. And I also have one question. How did you get into crowdfunding? From Easyship or before?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a good question. So I joined Easyship, like I said, 4 years ago, and I joined the company just really thinking I was going to help out e-commerce clients. And when I started, we realized that crowdfunding campaigns could use a lot of value from someone consulting them on shipping and fulfillment. And we realized that a lot of these campaigners had no idea what it took to get their products around the world. So we were like, hey, I think this is an actual vertical here where we can have a dedicated team to actually help ship and fulfill crowdfunding campaigns. So I kind of just fell into it. But again, it's been a really amazing industry to dive into. And yeah, I love it. Love doing it every day. So it's awesome.
Incredible. And can you give a brief overview on Easyship and what y'all do over there?
Yeah, totally. So, at its core, Easyship, we're a shipping technology platform. And our platform really allows you to integrate any of your e-commerce sites to our platform, as well as any pledge managers from a crowdfunding perspective to Easyship. And our platform really allows you to create, manage, and track all of your shipments and just have access to our network of couriers. We partner with over 100 couriers around the world that we have discounted rates with for our clients. And so our platform really gives you kind of a macro view of what's going on with your products being shipped. So shipping technology company, I'll talk about fulfillment a little bit later. We also help out crowdfunding clients and e-commerce clients with that too. But yeah, that's kind of an overview of what we do here.
Incredible. And I think you're going to talk about why it's so important to think about shipping before you launch the campaign.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. So I'll turn it over to you and I'll ask some questions along the way. How's that sound?
That's perfect. And can
Awesome.
you guys see my screen all right?
Yeah, everyone can see.
Okay, perfect. Sweet. So gonna dive in here. Again, this is kind of the talk here, delivering backer happiness, really navigating the shipping maze with us over here at Easyship. So excited to dive in. First, just wanted to go over a quick agenda here. First off, wanted to go over why shipping is important for your crowdfunding campaign. Seems pretty obvious, but it's super, super important. Number two, really wanted to dive deeper into what you need to know about shipping before launching. Then wanted to go over kind of what are the key considerations when it's time to ship the product. And then going over volumetric weight versus product weight, super important. And then what can influence shipping costs. And then lastly, our tool for shipping collection called Easyship Collect. So let's start it off here.
Awesome. And one thing before we jump into it, if it's okay, really quick, do you think that you can
Totally.
make it that it presents full screen and not just that we can see the top browser also?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I think that would
Let
be
me,
a little bit more comfortable.
yeah, let me do that.
Yeah. And while you are getting started, I think, before I joined Indiegogo, I was a crowdfunding consultant and project manager. And it was one of the things that we learned the hard way when I did my first campaign, how important it is to think about shipping before you launch and building in that into your overall strategy, conveying that to the backers and potential backers as well, and having all that information. I think when innovators and creators are going to build their campaigns, it's a unfortunate it's overlooked, and it it can be a costly mistake, but it can also deliver great happiness because when you get your product in the mail, I mean, it truly is delivering happiness, to make sure that your backers receive it when you say, and, that everything's meeting expectations. So it's so exciting to get the thing that you backed.
Totally, totally. And let me do this here and let me know if this is sharing here. For some reason, it still has the top of my screen for some reason, but can you see everything?
Yeah,
Said
we can see it. It's okay.
okay, sounds good.
Let's just go forward.
Okay, no worries. Awesome. So gonna dive a little bit deeper here. Showed you guys the agenda. Next, I really wanted to go over like why shipping is important for your crowdfunding campaign specifically. So again, shipping costs can really rack up and eat into your profits and even make a crowdfunding campaign lose money. It's really important to understand kind of how much shipping costs actually can affect a campaign. And what we've seen is we've crunched the numbers, and shipping done right is about 10 to 15% of funds raised for your crowdfunding campaign, and 20% max depending on the item category. And you might be thinking like, wow, this is a crazy amount of money just for shipping and fulfillment. But again, when we dive into the details on first mile shipping, fulfillment, last mile shipping, packaging, you guys can kind of understand like how much it actually costs to ship a product around the world. So again, it could be a little bit less than these percentages right here, but we want to err on the side of caution and just provide kind of a larger percentage here. And again, this is all possible with the proper planning when thinking about third-party logistics providers, 3PLs, fulfillment centers, we call them, duties and taxes, finding the right couriers, that kind of stuff too. So again, really important to look at what it takes to ship a crowdfunding campaign, as well as understanding each individual shipping cost specifically.
And how long does it typically take to get that information before you launch?
It's super quick, honestly. Like usually what we do is we have an initial call with, let's say, a pre-campaign, we call it. And if you have the correct dimensions and weights of your product, and you give us kind of an idea of like where you're at from a crowdfunding perspective, then we can give it to you within like a couple days. So it's really important to understand, we'll talk about it a little bit later, the ins and outs of your product itself, but with the right information, we can give you guys some estimates right away.
And one more question before we go to the next slide. If a campaigner were to talk to you before they launch, how often do shipping prices change? Is it every month? Is it every 6 months? Like how often are shipping prices expected to change?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I would say domestic shipping prices usually change from an annual basis. So on a year to year. So US domestic prices, EU domestic shipping prices, those change on an annual basis. But when it comes to the ocean freight market and the air freight market, as well as international shipping, those could change like month to month, week to week, depending on what's going on in the ecosystem in the world that day. So again, it can fluctuate from time to time, but it's a good question, Sid.
Thank you. I'm excited to see what's next.
Cool. Let's do it. Next, wanted to go into kind of what you need to know about shipping before launching. And I alluded to it a little bit earlier, but really understanding like how to calculate fulfillment costs, duties and taxes before launching a campaign. These are some key things to understand. Okay, how much should I allocate over for fulfillment and taxes and duties before launching a crowdfunding campaign? Because the last thing that we want is for a crowdfunding campaign to launch and then not do any research. And then when it comes time to ship, there are all these costs and all these different items that they didn't take into account before launching. So really important to zero in on those few things specifically. And we'll go into a little bit more detail on these as well. The other thing that I wanted to mention too is we really want our campaigners to open their products up internationally, right? We've seen that even 38 to 50% of the backers around the world live outside the United States. We've seen usually around 50 to 60% of backers be in the United States as well. So we, again, want you to think about optimizing the United States market, but also looking into those other regions and figuring out, okay, what is it going to cost to ship to Canada or Australia or Japan? So it's really important to not just fixate on the bigger markets like the United States or the EU, for instance, but to really look at all of the rest of the world countries as well, because you more than likely are going to have backers coming from those regions.
I have a few follow-up questions on that. For, let's say, a campaigner from the US who has opened their campaign to ship globally. Would you advise, or what would be your recommendation to that campaigner about shipping from the EU to EU backers and shipping from the US to US backers, or finding one central run from Hong Kong, or what would you advise in that situation?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it all depends on the size of the product, right? So if you have a really heavy product, and 90% of my clients are manufacturing in China, if it's a really heavy product, it makes sense to do domestic fulfillment in the EU and the United States, because it's going to be really expensive to get a product direct to customer via air, for instance, from Hong Kong or from China. So again, number one, like the size of the product is really, really important. And then number two is volume, right? If you have three backers in the EU, it probably doesn't make sense to do domestic fulfillment out there. But if you have like thousands of backers in the EU, it might make sense to do that. So I would say those two things specifically, Sid.
Okay, awesome. And we definitely are starting to get some good questions coming in, which we will answer towards the end. But I do have, a question as well about when you're calculating the fulfillment, shipping costs, duties, and taxes. Is there a big variable when it comes to products that are, let's say, non-technological products versus technology versus ones with batteries versus all of that? And are you talking about that later on, or do you want to cover that now quickly?
Yeah, I'll talk about that a little bit later on. But again, I'll fixate on like what an HS code specifically is a little bit later. But an HS code is basically what customs scan when they see their package, and it tells them what the exact product is. So any product in the world has a specific HS code, and that dictates what those duties and tariffs will be. So again, yes, it's all based on the exact product itself. Sometimes like battery products have a higher duty rate than, let's say, a product without a battery, but it's all dependent on what the product is specifically. But it's a good call out for sure, Sid.
Cool. And again, for the Q&A, don't worry, I'm not ignoring you all. We're going to answer them towards the end and as we go. All right, awesome.
Let's do it. Awesome. So again, wanted to go over a couple things here on like what you need to know about shipping before launching. Again, we talked about and alluded to duties and taxes earlier. And I'm glad you brought that up, Sid, because this is super important. And understanding like the HS code of your product is really vital in understanding what it's going to cost to move your goods into a specific region, right? So if you're manufacturing in China and you want to move all of your US orders into the United States B2B, you're gonna have to pay some sort of a duty and tariff on those goods since it's going to a fulfillment center. So it's really important to understand, does your product hit the China tariff? What's the HS code of the product, so you understand what the percent duty and taxes are into the United States. So again, super important. And that's something that myself and my team can help calculate, as well as you can see here on point two, you can do that directly on our platform as well, right? So if you want to see the duty and tax threshold to Singapore and the tax rate, as well as the shipping cost to any of these regions, you can do it directly on our platform with a crowdfunding calculator specifically. So we make it really easy to plug and play and understand what those costs are.
Absolutely. And I'm happy that you have the taxes listed here. I can speak from personal experience. There's also from running campaigns in the past, and when you're shipping products internationally, there's the question of to include VAT or to have VAT paid by the backer when the product enters the country, or to release it from customs. What do you generally advise when it comes to that?
Yeah, so I think it comes down to like everyone's like situation, right? I think when you're moving goods into the United States or into the EU specifically, it really comes down to like if it has like a really high duty rate or a really high tax rate specifically, it doesn't make sense to just ship everything from Hong Kong and not have to deal with any of those imports B2B into those regions. So it really depends on kind of what you're looking at there.
So again, kind of in that frame, if it's something that's going to have a high tax or VAT on it, you would maybe recommend that the company bring it into the EU, for example, and then ship from the EU so that the price is baked in, that tax is already baked in, and the backer isn't surprised with an additional cost. Perhaps.
Yeah, it really all depends. Like I would recommend if the product's relatively light, and there's a high duty threshold into the EU and let's say the United States, I would recommend just like shipping out direct to customer from Hong Kong. And we'll talk about some tax benefits from doing that. But again, if it's heavy, it's going to be really hard to ship direct to customer from China and Hong Kong. So you're going to have to move it into those big regions specifically.
Yeah. I also think just from working on a B2C side in the past, I think that certain certain countries, the backers from those countries are more some backers are more sensitive and some are less sensitive to paying the VAT. Like some are accustomed to it where others are not, from my experience as well. Would you agree?
Totally. And I think it really comes down to like educating backers on the campaign site and letting them know, hey, if you're coming from this specific country, you're gonna have to pay some sort of duty and tax. And yeah, you're right. I feel like a lot of people kind of understand that, but again, it's important to write that on your campaign page so you can be like, hey, we actually have it in our taxes and duties section on our Indiegogo site, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I love that you mentioned that. I think it's so important to be transparent with your backers during the campaign and the whole process as well, to the best of your ability as you have the information to ensure that it's being shared.
Totally, totally. And then, excuse me, the last 2 points here that I wanted to go over that are really, really important is packaging. Packaging is crucial. This could make or break a crowdfunding campaign because it really comes down to the size of a product, right? If your packaging is way bigger than the actual size of your product, it's going to be a lot more expensive to ship. So it's really important to like look into packaging really early on, figuring out ways to optimize your packaging so it's not super large. It kind of fits the size of your product. Because again, I promise it'll really help when it comes down to your bottom line at the end. So again, we'll dive a little bit deeper into packaging and volumetric weight a little bit later, but just wanted to emphasize for the first time how important packaging is. And the last point here is dangerous goods, and we'll also go over this a little bit later. But again, if your product has a battery, liquid, or magnet, or is considered a dangerous good, there are like specific documentations that you'll need from your manufacturer to ship the product around the world. And sometimes products with batteries are more expensive to ship than products without batteries. So it's really important to understand if your product is considered a dangerous good, really anything with a battery, liquid, or magnet. Talk to us, talk to a professional on like what documentation you need to ship your product around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's so important for everyone here to realize as well that, you know, you need to check what your, you know, what category of shipping you fall into, and if you might need any international certificates or domestic certificates, or, you know, how that would look as well. So, and of course, you know, exactly as you just mentioned, everyone can 100% reach out to you after this and learn more.
Totally. Cool. Next, wanted to go a little bit deeper into some key considerations when it comes to shipping your products around the world. So number one, dimensions and weights. At the end of the day, shipping costs are all based on the size and weight of your product. So if it's a really heavy product, it's going to be really expensive to ship the product, especially internationally. So the first couple of questions that I ask these pre-campaigns are, do you have your dimensions and weights dialed in? Do you know any packaging that you're going to be using? That's how we calculate shipping costs. So when you come to me or someone on my team, it's really important to understand that we need those dimensions and weights to calculate shipping costs specifically. That's number one. Number two is manufacturing location. This is really key in order to strategize how and where to fulfill your orders from. Again, 90 to 90% of our clients are manufacturing in China in the Shenzhen, Dongguan area. So we're really well versed in getting products in and out of there. But again, the strategy is all based on where the products are, where their origin is, and where they're coming from. So that's important for us to know when we go into a call and try and think of a strategy for your crowdfunding campaign specifically. And then lastly, alluded to this a little bit earlier, but product category. If the product is a dangerous good, this is really important to understand when shipping a product around the world. This can really influence the shipping costs. And again, some couriers will not take specific types of products. If it's a power bank, for instance, some couriers won't take that, won't ship it internationally. So it's really important for us to understand early on and for you to understand what is actually in the product so we can kind of figure out exactly what couriers to present you from a shipping perspective.
Does it also impact if it would be shipped via plane, via air, or via sea?
Not really. We still need like all of the dangerous goods documents to ship both. Again, air freight is going to be more expensive than shipping via sea just because of the time it takes to get to customers or to a region. But again, we're still going to need documentation for any dangerous goods products if it's going via air or via ocean.
Rock on.
Cool. Sweet. Next, one of my favorite topics actually is volumetric weight versus product weight. And what I alluded to earlier about the size of your packaging and the size of your product, this really kind of brings everything together here when you're looking at volumetric weight versus product weight. So from a definition standpoint, product weight, pretty standard. The weight of the actual product itself, that's without the shipping box. But volumetric weight, which a majority of couriers take, volumetric weight is how much space the package occupies according to its dimensions, which is then converted to its equivalent weight. So basically, the weight that takes into account the product plus the packaging. So again, if you come to me and you don't know the size of your box, but you know the size of your product itself, the shipping prices might be different by the time we actually end up shipping and we get you an actual shipping box, right? Because I would be quoting you out based on the product of your the product that you give me. But we need to put an outer box, a shipping box on top of that product itself. And that could bring up the volumetric weight of the product. So it's really important to understand that the size of the box really matters and can influence the shipping costs at the end of the day.
Okay. And I actually have an interesting question that could maybe be asked now. Does a stepper motor magnet count as a dangerous good?
So any magnet would be considered a dangerous good. I think depending on the strength of that magnet or motor, I think you said.
Mhm.
But regardless, we're going to need some sort of documentation for that, and we're going to need to learn a little bit more. We have a whole dangerous goods team at Easyship where you tell us exactly what the product is, what's inside the product, and then we can kind of tell you, yes, this is green lighted to ship. You need these documentation. So I don't know exactly based on the on that magnet, but most likely yes.
Cool. Awesome.
Cool. Sweet. This is just a good example, right? We had a client that took off 2 centimeters from their packaging, which reduced the volumetric weight from 1.53 kg to 1.4 kg, and that saved $3 off the shipping costs per
Oh, wow.
package. And it doesn't seem like a lot, but if you have 3,000 packages, that's a total of cost savings of $9,000. So again, really keying in on the right packaging for your products when shipping around the world is really important from a cost perspective. So this is just an example, but we help clients do this type of stuff every single day.
That's amazing. And I've got a good follow-up question actually from one of our viewers. Uh, they have a product that's pretty big being produced in China, about 30 centimeters on 20 centimeters. What advice do you have to save costs on the shipping?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think number one, it depends on where your volume is. If you're manufacturing in China, I guarantee you probably will have 50 to 60% of your orders in the United States. What I would recommend is most likely ocean freighting the goods into the United States to your house or to a fulfillment center, and then shipping domestically from there. The domestic US to US shipping cost is going to be a lot cheaper than if you sent it via air from China or Hong Kong. So again, that sounds like a large package, and I would recommend domestic fulfillment for those. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense.
Totally.
Cool. Next, wanted to give some basics on like what can influence shipping costs specifically. So, seems pretty obvious, but distance. So, the distance from your backer's doorstep, it's going to be more expensive to ship. If you're shipping from China to the US versus US to US, it's going to be a lot different from a shipping cost perspective. So, distance is huge when influencing shipping costs. Number two, like we kind of talked about a couple times, the type of cargo. Battery products are usually going to be more expensive than shipping a product without a battery. The type of cargo can really influence shipping costs specifically. And then third, the mode of transportation. Air freight, like I mentioned before, is going to be a lot more expensive than shipping via ocean. So again, the mode of transportation, if it's on a vessel, going on the water, a train, a truck, or a plane, it's going to influence what the shipping costs are going to be. And then lastly, seasonality and demand. This is really important to note because I have a lot of clients that really, let's say, want to get their products out before Christmas. And when it comes to the holiday season, there's always surcharges put on by the couriers. So it ends up being a lot more expensive to ship during the holiday months than, let's say, 2 or 3 months after or 2 or 3 months before. So yeah, we just try and advise our clients on the potential of price fluctuation during those times. And for instance, Chinese New Year happens every single year. The fulfillment centers are shut down for a week or so. So it really depends on what the time of year is, but it's something to keep in mind when you decide when you actually want to fulfill your products around the world.
I'm so happy you brought up Chinese New Year. That was something I was going to mention that everyone should totally be aware of from both a manufacturing and from a shipping fulfillment point of view of getting them out of, China and also manufacturing during that time.
Yeah, totally. And I think it just comes down to planning, right? Like talking to your manufacturer, talking to your fulfillment center and just planning for that kind of stuff. And know, like maybe letting backers know or customers know, hey, there's going to be a dead period for a week. You like fulfillment or manufacturing should start the week after Chinese New Year, for instance. So again, it really just depends and comes down to just being transparent.
Absolutely. I actually had a question that I thought of just now, and I think it's somewhat relevant for this as we talk about weight and size of the packaging. We talked about the size of the package, so if you have a large package, but what if you have a small package that's quite heavy? I mean, how does that impact the cost? Or would you say that the cost is about the same of a large box that's light to a small box that's heavy?
Yeah, I'd probably say like the second piece of what you said there. Like, yes, like if it's a small package, then like the volumetric weight won't be higher than the product weight. But again, if the product weight is super heavy, then the courier is still going to take that number. It's usually like the higher number between the volumetric weight and the product weight. And that's what the couriers will take. So it's still probably going to be pretty expensive to ship a really heavy product, even though that it's small. But again, it depends on the situation.
Cool. Okay.
Next, wanted to talk about something called Section 321. And a lot of our crowdfunding campaigns who, let's say, manufacture in China, have a really light product and want to ship direct to customer into the United States from our Hong Kong location, they can really utilize Section 321. President Obama signed the Trade Facilitation and Trade Enforcement Act in 2015 and raised the threshold for direct to customer shipments from $200 to $800. So shipments that are under the $800 threshold, they're imported free of duty and taxes. So basically, any product that is being shipped directly to a customer from outside of the United States into the United States and is under $800 per parcel will bypass all taxes, duties, and tariffs. So again, if you have a really light product, and let's say you have a high duty and tariff, moving it from China to the United States B2B, and it makes sense from a shipping cost perspective just to ship direct to customer from China or Hong Kong, you can utilize Section 321 and bypass those taxes and duties. So it's a really, really great thing, especially for crowdfunding campaigns that are doing this in bulk or any e-commerce clients that have a light product that ship from Hong Kong or from China.
That's really interesting. I actually did not know that.
Yeah, definitely something interesting that a lot of our crowdfunding campaigns have utilized over the past 4 years. And yeah, it's really exciting.
So here's an interesting question. With that, does it make sense that as the as you're manufacturing, does it make sense to manufacture and ship everything in one go, or would you advise to try to ship it in smaller parcels over, a few weeks or months?
Yeah, I think it depends, right? Like we recommend like doing it all at once, especially if let's say you wanted to ocean freight or air freight those goods into a region for domestic fulfillment. You wouldn't have to do those like 2, 3, 4 ocean freights into the United States. You could do it all at once and use your volume to bring that cost down. But again, we do have crowdfunding campaigns all the time that want to ship in batches that have all US orders ready at once. So they ship the US orders out first or EU, for instance. So yeah, it doesn't really matter to us, but again, if everything could be ready at once, you can use that volume as a cost savings to potentially move the goods into a specific region.
Okay, very interesting.
Cool. Next, wanted to
Hmm.
go over a little bit more on like how campaigners charge for shipping right now and kind of what they've done in the past. We've seen it all, to be honest with you, over here at Easyship. Sometimes people bake the shipping price into the retail cost of the product at the beginning of the campaign. Sometimes campaigners charge separately for shipping at checkout on the campaign site at the beginning of the campaign. And then some people charge backers at the end of the campaign using a pledge manager like BackerKit, for instance. And what we've seen because of the fluctuation in the shipping market and everything kind of going on in the world, we don't recommend collecting shipping costs at the beginning of the campaign. We recommend collecting shipping costs close to when you actually ship the product out, because again, you can have manufacturing really dialed in, locked in, and you know exactly when goods are going to be ready. But there's always some sort of delay when it comes to shipping and fulfillment and manufacturing. So a lot of the campaigners that we were working with in the past would shoot themselves in the foot because they would charge for shipping at the beginning, and then it was 6 months, 12 months, a couple of years before they actually ended up shipping their product out. And then once they did, products got a lot more expensive to ship. So again, we recommend collecting shipping costs kind of towards the end of the crowdfunding campaign, closer to when you actually ship out the product.
Oh my gosh, I have so much to follow up on this, and I think that it is such an important. I think this is such an important topic to kind of dive into a little bit deeper. The other thing that is not talked about enough as well, people move. People move quite frequently, and people also move to different countries, they move to different locations. And so that's also something that you need to take into account, is that that's part of the process, which is one reason why it's a good idea or potentially advised to collect the shipping closer to it. And it's a time to also use one of the pledge managers, such as pledge manager or BackerKit, one of these ones, and actually verify the shipping address and then collect all of that, collect the shipping fee. But to that note, I think it's also extremely important. It's not important, it's necessary to convey the shipping price to the backers before they make that decision, so that everyone is aware and be fully transparent with, you could say, an estimated shipping cost plus minus.
Totally. And that's why you can talk to someone like myself or someone on my team at Easyship and really give these campaigners costs from a shipping perspective. So those merchants can go on Indiegogo and be like, hey, we're not collecting shipping costs now because of these reasons, market fluctuation, but here are the current market rates for shipping right now that we're looking to charge you guys from a shipping perspective. So we can give campaigners a great idea on what those costs are going to be so they can tell their backers that. And then, yeah, we can help collect for shipping at the end of the campaign as well, which is really exciting.
Totally. I think also something that has become a more common practice is for free shipping to the US, and then to bake that price into the perk price for the or like US, Canada, or whatever region you're in. So if you are a campaigner from the EU, maybe you would bake that price into your local region. And I think that's become fairly common practice as well. What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the size of the product, right? If you let's say from an e-commerce perspective or even crowdfunding perspective, if you have a really light product and you know you're going to be shipping domestically within the United States, like I mentioned to earlier, those prices fluctuate from an annual perspective, so you can get away with maybe doing that. But when it comes to international shipping, those can fluctuate a lot more than domestic shipping prices. So I wouldn't recommend maybe doing that from an international perspective. But yeah, people definitely do that. I think it depends on your bottom line, depends on where you're manufacturing, as well as like the size and retail price of the product.
Definitely. And I actually have two questions from the group to that. So I'm going to read the first one, which is the okay, so yeah, so the question is the cost of shipping baked into the reward? And the answer is no. That's on you to decide. The way that it would work is that you have a few options, as we said here. You can put it as included, so free shipping to the US, and then when the backer goes to select their award, they put in their shipping country and they would see the shipping costs. Otherwise, if you want to charge later, it would say $0, and then you show the cost. And then the follow-up part of that is, with the fluctuation cost of shipping, how do you bake it into the price? So that's exactly the question. How do you bake the shipping cost into the reward if things change?
Yeah, and again, I think, like I mentioned earlier, there are so many facets of shipping costs, fulfillment costs, freight costs, So when you have an outline and understanding of like what it costs to actually get this product to your backers, that's when you can kind of understand, okay, does it make sense to bake it into the cost of shipping, right? Do you want your backers to help pay for the fulfillment piece of it, the freight piece of it, the last mile shipping piece of it? I think it depends on, again, like the size of the product, the situation, but I would really recommend looking at all aspects of what it takes to ship a product before baking it into the price of the product.
Absolutely. And then we actually have a follow-up question, and then I'll let we can move to the next slide.
Totally.
Is it required to use a pledge manager to collect the shipping post campaign?
It's a good question, and it will actually lead me perfectly into my next slide. But you definitely don't have to, right? I think pledge managers are really great from a, let's say, like address verification standpoint, as well as an add-on perspective. If you want to maybe upsell your customers, or you want to have them get that shirt or that pin, whatever it may be. I think they're really great from that. As well as just overall like backer data management, but you definitely don't have to, right? I think when you have like thousands and thousands and thousands of backers, it's really nice to use a pledge manager. But you definitely don't have to utilize Easyship specifically. And that kind of takes me into my next slide, if that works, Sid.
Totally. I like that.
Cool. So Easyship, we actually built out a tool called Easyship Collect to kind of help with this shipping collection piece. So basically what it is it's a survey tool, right? So 3 to 4 weeks before you actually start shipping, backers will be getting an email survey from Easyship to do a couple things here. So number one is edit and confirm their address. Like you mentioned, Sid, if they moved, they can edit and confirm their updated address on this survey tool. Number two is they can pay for shipping on the spot. And we like to give backers the choice of what shipping solution they want. We'll usually give them a more expensive option, middle tier, cheaper option, just so it helps with conversion and allows backers to feel like they have a choice when it comes to shipping. Number three is taxes and duties. If there are taxes and duties due, backers can pay for the taxes and duties directly on the survey tool. And then lastly, depending on the price of the product, depending on what the product is, backers can have the ability to insure their package on Easyship Collect. So again, this is a tool that we built out just to help campaigners collect shipping from the source, right? So instead of going into a campaign management tool and kind of estimating per weight break what the shipping cost is we know where this person is coming from. We know their address. We know the exact dimensions and weights of the product. So here we're presenting you, the backer, the exact shipping cost, taxes, and duties that you're going to have. So again, it just adds transparency to the whole process, which is all we try and do over here at Easyship. And again, just makes it a better experience for the merchant and the backer.
This is awesome. I mean, I've been in the crowdfunding industry for almost 9 years now. And so just to see the evolution of it, and this is such a powerful tool and so important, especially for the tax and duty.
Totally. And
I can't iterate enough how important it is.
no, yeah, it is. And I think we really built this out because like I started like 3 months before COVID. So I got to see kind of the shipping landscape back in 2020. And a lot of people were charging for shipping at the beginning, baking it into the cost of the product. And then, like I mentioned before, 3 months, 6 months, 2 years went by, and then shipping costs looked a lot different. So that's why we kind of built out this tool to collect shipping at the right time and be able to collect the right amount for shipping and taxes and duties.
Absolutely. And I think it's so, and we'll share the shipping calculator in the follow-up email as well for everyone to be able to check out.
Cool. Yeah, and I think that is it.
Um,
Yeah, again, would love to kind of answer some questions for you guys from a shipping and fulfillment perspective as well.
Totally. So I'm going to ask you to exit out of this, and also thank you for going through all of that. That was fantastic. I'm going to start reading off some questions. Are you ready for it?
Do it.
All right. So first of all, thank you again. That was really exciting. And yeah, let's dive into some Q&A. So the first one is, how does DDP work for battery products shipping to US and Canada?
It's a good question. And for DDP, just to define the term, it's a tax policy, duties delivered paid. Basically, basically merchants will prepay taxes and duties on behalf of the backers. So once the backer gets the product, they're not going to have to pay any additional taxes and duties. And the nice thing about it is you can prepay taxes and duties directly on the Easyship platform. And we have DDP services to really anywhere in the world. And to answer your question, there's really no difference for a battery product versus a non-battery product. It might just end up being a little bit more expensive from a shipping cost perspective to have a DDP service that has a product with a battery. So again, no problem, might be a little bit more expensive, but we can facilitate that directly on our platform.
Awesome. Sounds good. All right. Our next question, this is an interesting one. This individual has a product that is 3 parts. Each are 5 feet to 8 feet long. They plan to package them in 2 separate boxes, but they're curious. Does the price change significantly if it's in 2 separate boxes versus 1?
Yes. So again, I think it depends on, I would have to take a look at the exact dimensions and weights, but again, we recommend like not necessarily sending 2 individual packages to a customer and kind of combining it into one. But again, it seems like these are like relatively large products. And from a freight forwarding perspective, a trucking perspective, you might be able to get away with that. At Easyship, we handle more like last mile shipping. So in that case, you recommend kind of bringing all of the products into one box if you can. But again, if you have to, then we can do that too. It might be a little bit more expensive to ship 2 individual boxes versus, let's say, 1 or 3. But again, it really depends on the actual dimensions and weights of your product.
Awesome. I have another question. This one is about, so this one actually is more for me. So this person is asking, they're saying, I'm in New York. When I add shipping to the US, there is only one option for the US. Is there any way to have different shipping charges for different parts of the US? And the answer right now is actually no. And that's for any country. Right now, the way that Indiegogo, so, okay, this is a very interesting question. And actually, I think you can follow up. So from Indiegogo's perspective, if you would like to charge shipping during the campaign, during the live campaign with the perk, then it is country by country, not state or region from the country or, wherever you're from. But now this is my question to you. If I go with Easyship and I'm, working with the platform, can I then charge state by state?
Yeah, totally. Like that's the whole thing, right? If anyone knows about a rate card, within the United States, for instance, it's usually zone 1 through zone 8. And if you're shipping, let's say from LA, it's going to be a lot more expensive to ship to New York versus domestically within LA. So based on the address, we can collect shipping based on where they are in the United States specifically.
So I think what we're both saying in this case is this person definitely needs to reach out to you. That's first of all. Second is that it would probably be advised to charge shipping after the campaign and then work with Easyship to be able to, sort out the location and then in like domestic shipping costs.
Exactly.
Awesome. I like that a lot. So we have another question. This person would, how long does the shipping process take?
It's a good question. And I think it depends on the exact situation, and it depends on like the courier that you choose, right? So if you choose, let's say, a really cheap courier that'll get it to backers with limited tracking, it could take, let's say, like 7 to 15 days, right? The nice thing about Easyship is on our platform, you can see all of our list of couriers. You can see the transit time to those backers. You can also see based on reviews from our customers, like the reviews of that courier, as well as like how much it would cost to do an expedited shipping option, right? So I think it depends from a last mile shipping perspective. It depends on the amount you want to pay for shipping to get it to the product, to get the product to the backer. But again, from a fulfillment perspective, it really depends on like if you need pick and pack done, how long it'll take to fulfill the volume that you have, for instance. So I think it's a hard question to give an exact number figure on, but hopefully the points that I brought up around that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I think it's also important to mention, as we start to kind of wrap up, and if anyone has any other questions, please do feel welcome to ask those. Oh, we have a follow-up from the same person. Wait, hold on. Before I start to do the wrap up, can you please cover this if you have not done so already? Please cover things we need to know about shipping products with lithium batteries. So essentially more information around rechargeable table lamps, lithium batteries, and then certificates required, shipping cost differences, shipping country limitations, and the pro. I also think that this might be a great follow-up question to you to book a call with you, but if you want to just cover that in a few minutes.
Yeah, totally. And it's a good question. And I didn't go into the specifics of the documents just to keep it more high level, but you're right. It's a really good question. And we ship lithium ion batteries all the time. And you need two documents really, an MSDS, and I can write it in the chat. Number one is an MSDS document. And then number two is a UN 38.3 document. And those two documents we basically take to the courier and be like, hey, this is what the product is. It's been tested. It can go on a plane. It can go on a vessel, and then we green light it for you. So you're going to need those two documents specifically. And again, we have couriers that ship these types of products all the time. And what I would do is I would talk to your manufacturer and ask them about those specific documents and then provide them to us. We can talk to our dangerous goods team and then be able to provide shipping costs and couriers that can take a product like that. But I can write the two documents in the chat.
Super important. How long does it typically take to get those documents? And is it something that you can start while you're in the manufacturing process, or does it need to happen after?
Yeah, so it shouldn't take that long, but again, especially for the battery testing, which is the UN 38.3, that'll of course has to be done once the product is made. So I don't have an exact timeline on how long it would take, but I usually don't have like that many issues getting these types of documents from clients. Again, when you're first launching and you haven't produced anything yet, you obviously won't have those products, but I would talk to your manufacturer and get an exact timeline on how long it'll actually take to get those documents.
Okay, totally. So, I mean, in terms of documents and, thinking about it from that front, we have another person that's asking about shipping water or liquids and if there's any legalities around that for an international shipping.
Yeah, it's a good question. And to be honest, like we don't ship that many liquids per se. We can definitely do so. But I think it just comes down to like what is in the liquid, right? I know like a lot of beauty products have like liquids and that kind of stuff, and we can definitely ship those types of products, but it really just depends on what the liquid is. So again, we would have to like really figure out, okay, like what is made up in that liquid, and then go to our dangerous goods team, talk to the courier and be like, hey, this is what's in the product. Can we actually ship this? So again, we can kind of work with our team and project manage exactly what would need to be done for a product like that.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think it's also important. I mean, as we start to wrap up, because we don't have any more questions now. First of all, again, thank you very much for taking the time. This was super informative and it's been recorded so everyone can rewatch it. I think, as people are starting to build their campaigns and they start to think about this, how can somebody decide if they should collect the shipping during the campaign or after? Like, what questions should they ask in order to make that decision? Like, what would you advise them asking?
Yeah, so I would always just advise to collect shipping costs after the campaign. Like I mentioned before, like you could have your manufacturer really dialed in. They know exactly when they're going to produce all of your products. But there's always some sort of a delay. And I would err on the side of caution and really just collect shipping costs closer to when you actually are going to ship the product. So you know that your backers are paying for the current market rates from a shipping perspective. Of course, if you have a really light product, you're shipping domestically within the EU or the US, there is some leeway there. But overall, I would recommend collecting shipping costs at the end of the campaign.
Absolutely. And something else also to keep in mind as well, I think that if you're unsure about where your product can ship to, or if you will want to ship there, first of all, you should definitely consult, with experts like Easyship before you make that decision. But it's advised that when you open the campaign, to select the countries that you're 100% certain that you can ship to, and then add more countries, because once you've opened it, and if somebody backs from that country, you cannot remove them and you will be required to ship that product. So I would advise personally, and you can add to this as well, be sure about which countries you can ship to with 100% certainty. And then you can always add more countries. You can't detract them.
Yeah, and I think when you come and talk to us and we get your dimensions and weights and we run shipping costs, we're not just going to run shipping costs for US domestic backers, right? We're going to run shipping costs to really anywhere in in the world that we can ship to, and we can ship to literally anywhere in the world. And yeah, there are some regions that are tough to ship into sometimes, and we can just be transparent with you and let you know that's the case. But again, we recommend opening it up international, especially in the EU, UK, Australia, Canada, and we can provide that insight into what those shipping costs will be.
Awesome. And so now we have a few individuals that are asking how they can be in touch with you. Can you please drop either your contact details or how they can be in touch here? And the recording will be emailed to everybody tomorrow. So you can expect a follow-up email with that. Matt has also left his contact information here as well. So thank you for that. I am also going to share, in addition, so this is also a nice treat. For anyone who would like to be in touch with one of our AEs at Indiegogo to talk about your campaign or your upcoming campaign, you can book a call with one of our account executives. His name is Luke and happens to be in my screen here. So I'm putting that in the chat as well. So yeah, so thank you, Matt, for putting that. And then also as a follow-up, we will be emailing everyone tomorrow with Matt's email to be in touch with him or to book a call with Luke from our account executive team to talk about your campaign. And yeah, and then if you have any follow-up questions, you can just reach out to us. Do you have anything you want to add before we jump off?
No, I mean, I appreciate the time. And yeah, again, definitely reach out to myself or my team when you're looking into shipping and fulfillment costs. We can really just dive into everything that you need to know and really just act as kind of a consultant for you from a shipping and fulfillment perspective. So yeah, very excited to be on here. I appreciate it, Sid.
Yep. And actually, I see that the chat was disabled. So before we jump off, let me just share that with a few individuals really quick who did ask for it. Yep. Yes, thank you. And then, yeah, so again, I will be sharing with everyone in the follow-up email, Matt's email, so you can be in touch with him, and the link to book a call with Luke and the call recording. So you will have all of that. Yeah, thank you. This was a pleasure. I also learned a few new things, so that was great, and I really appreciate it. And good luck to everyone on their campaigns. And that's about it. I'm going to end the recording. 1 second.